This is Michael Woodward, and this is episode 46 of the Jumblethink podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumblethink podcast, a podcast focused on telling the stories of dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers. Along the way, our guests will share their secrets and tips on how they reached their big idea or dream and created the world they wanted to live in. Today's guest is Cardiff D. Hall. Really excited to have him on. More about Cardiff in a minute. On Monday's episode is Tim Rode. He is the founder of One Life Fully Lived. It's an organization that helps you dream it, plan it, and live it. He's also been a successful real estate agent in Northern California. It's a fun episode filled with some amazing takeaways for you as you chase your big idea and dream. I want to take a moment and thank you, the listener, for being a part of the Jumblethink podcast. It's been really exciting, and in the last couple of weeks, we've hit some really cool milestones. So I want to thank you for listening and being a part of our journey. One of our goals at Jumblethink is to help you achieve your big idea and dream. To help give you some actionable tips, we do One Tip Friday, where we release a new video of a tip that you can apply to your big idea and dream on Facebook and Instagram. Go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Now let's jump into my interview with Cardiff D. Hall. On today's episode is Cardiff D. Hall. He's an author, speaker, mentor, and just all-around cool guy. He has a great gift for you, our audience. Go on over to cardiffdhall.com/jumble, and you can check out what that gift is. You'll learn more about that in episode 2. He's an author. He's written a book called Tide Turners, The Practical Guide to Help You Feel in Control, Experience More Joy, and Sustain Achievement in Your Life. Super cool book, and I think you're going to really enjoy that. He's also got a really cool program for kids. Can't wait to share that and so much more in this interview. So let's jump into the conversation with Cardiff D. Hall. Cardiff, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for taking time out to be on. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, Michael. It is great to be here with you and the Jumblethink audience.
Oh, it has been a fun discovery as I've learned more about you. First off, shout out to Eric Eaton. He introduced us, and It's really cool, as we were talking before we started recording, to find that our paths have connected with different people that we both know. It's really just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing, and it's kind of a, when you put yourself out there, man, Michael, you begin to attract people into your lives. And I honestly believe that this attraction, this law of attraction, if you take the right steps, great things can happen. And I'm here with you right now, and it's because of those steps.
You have had an interesting journey. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and what kind of led up to where you are today.
Yeah. So I've been in marketing and sales for the past 25 years. Corporate America, Michael, working the grind, 9 to 5. You have these aspirations of one day, I'm going to be a vice president. One day I'm going to be a president. And then, quite honestly, several years ago, one of the things that I grew up understanding, because my dad was in education, he was a principal, so education was important to our family, was the fact that you needed to get your MBA. He had his MBA in education and working on his, PhD. And that was what I knew. And so I remember I was at my corporate and I said, I'm going to apply for MBA and an MBA and take a leave of absence and kind of come back and go into marketing and do that track, Michael. And I filled out the applications. I took the GMAT, and I remember going into the college kind of like auditorium where they had the GMAT. Okay. And it was a rainy day outside, and I studied and I did all the prep work, and I just did not feel good. I mean, I was uneasy about the test, and the results came, and I didn't do very well. So I thought, well, okay, I did do very well, but I'll still apply and send everything to the colleges that I did. So I did that, and I went around and I interviewed, and I interview very well, and I'm personable, and I'm connecting, and I'm going to college campuses. That my wife at the time is coming with me, and we're going to pack up, and we're going to leave the state of Minnesota, and we'll go to school.
Yeah.
Well, that fall, well, it's interesting now. I'm sure that everything is online, and you take a test, you see your scores, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you apply. Well, back in the snail mail days, right? I had to wait for that official letter to come and say, hey, you're accepted or you're not accepted. So I remember, I kept checking the box, and I didn't see anything. Oh, finally something from Northwestern, which is a premier college MBA program.
Yeah.
MBA, and I opened it up. Sorry, Mr. Hall, you're basically not qualified for our program, and we wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed, but I wasn't out because I knew some more letters were coming, and the same style, the same tone was in those letters. And
Wow.
I was like, what now? Because that's what I was taught. That's what I was, ingrained in my mind. To achieve that level of success that you have to have your MBA. You have to, go through that path. And that path was closed. Those doors were closed for me. So eventually I came up, went on and continued my career. But about 3 years ago, I was on an airplane from Baltimore to Minneapolis, and I fly a lot for my corporate job,
Yeah.
Michael, and I got the upgrade to first class, and all I wanted to do was just work, do my work and just get things done and get caught back up because I had some meetings for the day. And I remember this like it was yesterday, Michael. It was cloudy, kind of another rainy day. And the plane took off, and we climbed above the clouds. It was absolutely crystal clear, beautiful day. I'm sitting by the window on the right side of the plane, and I look out, and the sun is there. And literally, I hear a voice that says, "Write a book."
Wow.
Now, I've never had a thought about writing a book. Never crossed my mind. And so I go back to my keyboard, and I just like, whatever. I go back, and I hear this voice again, and it says, "Write a book," a little louder this time. And
Didn't
so
get
I
it the first
stopped.
time, right?
I didn't get it. No, I wasn't smart enough. And Michael, I sit back in my chair. I stop typing, stop doing email. And I'm like, so now I'm having this discussion with some voice saying, one, I didn't go to school to be an author. I don't know how to write a book or create a book or do anything like that. I'm not your guy. I don't even have time.
Yeah.
You know what? And so I go back to my work again. This time it comes again, the voice. I sit back, I reach inside my bag, and I bring out a 5x8 notepad, and I begin to sketch titles of a possible book I don't even know how to write. And I come home, and I tell my wife, I said, the flight was interesting. I had this experience. Like, is everything? The plane was fine. I said, I was told to write a book. And she's like, what? And I show her 2 titles, and I said, which title do you like? And she's like, are you serious? I'm like, which title do you like? And she's, I guess I like this title. Okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to start to write a book. And she thought I was crazy. Because I've never had this idea before.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
If you asked me this, today, would you be an author, speaker, coach, and do this? And I would say, you kidding me? I don't have time for that. That's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I chose to listen. And so here's what I do. Michael, have you ever been driving down the road, and you're supposed to go to a certain place, right? And for some reason you're driving and you miss that exit.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a 7-year-old daughter that seems to be a more occurrence because I'm talking to her and I'm just not paying attention. And that's what happens in our lives, because we're going, and one day we were like, how in the world did I get here?
Yeah.
I need to make a U-turn. And so what I do is I bring clarity for individuals, so it helps them get back on track so they can change the tide in their lives. And that metaphor of driving down the road and like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Man, that happened to me, and I shared my story in the book, but that was an awakening for me. And my mission now is to help people be awoken inside so they can transform themselves and move forward in their journey.
Wow. Now, I want to dive in to talk about the book in a moment, but before we do that, can you, tell me, I've been really processing the last couple of weeks with some friends talking about our culture and what's going on in our culture. And the word noise keeps coming up. Like there's this noise that we're unable to hear the things of significance. Do you feel like that's what maybe was going on with you? Like there was so much stuff going on, the should-haves, this is the way it's done and everything like that, that there was this static, this noise that was overcoming what was at core should be happening?
Yeah, I like the word noise because it truly was. I think we get caught up in this circle called life, and it's you either called it the rat race if you have kids. I mean, whatever it is, right? We all like have this grind, and we get caught in this grind, and I call it the hamster wheel. And I have a little story about the little hamster wheel. See, the hamster, he just is going on the treadmill until someone reaches in and says, okay, it's time to come out of your little wheel and let's do something else.
Yeah.
And we're in this, I call it the now generation, because everything is at our fingertips, Michael, now. We have a question. We go to the internet. We get it now. You see, we're in this now thing, and then I believe the majority of people want instant gratification. They want to know, are things going to work out, or if they're not, then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to try because I don't want to be. I don't have time for that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the now.
Yeah,
and you're because it's this noise and again, I was ready to hear that voice. And I think we need to be ready to hear it. Yeah. Because when we're ready, then things can shape our lives and transform ourselves. But if we're not ready, we're just like, whatever. I don't have time for that. I'll just do what I want to do. And how's that going for you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's that entrapment of the noise, and it's the entrapment of the now that prevent people from moving forward.
You mentioned something pretty profound there. You said in history, up until the last 15 years, if you had a question, sometimes there was just, you were resolved to be in a place of wonder. Because you couldn't just jump on Google and Google it. You couldn't just go out and I mean, my wife and I have conversations where we're sitting there and it's like, oh, I wonder, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, let's pull it up on Wikipedia or whatever, you know, and we have the answer. And one of the questions I had for you today was about wonder, and I think this leads into it well. You've said a couple different things. I want to read a couple quotes from you. One of them was, one must be willing to depart into the fog to achieve what one hasn't yet. Another quote that you said is, low tides allow for things which are not typically seen to come into vision. And the third thing that I saw that you said was, when you wonder, you begin to see things you have not seen before. Yeah. How do we get to a place of being able to see the unseen? A place of wonder that leads to discovery?
I just got chills when you read those quotes, Michael, because those places of wonder come when we are still and we begin to kind of put things aside and take time to focus on us, right? Focus on our lives. And we're caught up in this, this fast pace, do this, do that, take the kids here, and we're always going. And I believe things happen to us for a reason, but sometimes we choose not to, like, well, what does this mean? What can I learn from that? Instead of saying, well, poor me, this happened, oh, well, whatever. Yeah. And it's sitting in those times and saying, okay, this happened. I didn't like that experience. How can I make it better? How can I learn from this experience so I can move? If it happens, I can do this. And whatever it is, right? If it's parenting with their kids or if it's whatever, right? And that's what happened to me on that airplane. Yeah. Where I had to sit back and I had to, like, okay. And I had to like do some self-talk. And then I was doing this self-talk, right? I'm like, do I have enough time? Maybe I don't have enough time. Can I write a book? I don't know how to write a book. And I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And wonder begins when you decide to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
Okay.
And so wonder begins when we say, okay, don't know how to do that, but let me figure it out. Wonder begins when we say, okay, I may not have the answer on the internet, but maybe I can ask someone in my circle, or I can get to know someone who's willing to help me.
Yeah.
And I think it's that willingness to reach out and say, and raise your hand and say, you know what, I don't know, but here's what I want to do. Can you show me? Can you help me? Is there a resource that I can find? And if someone's willing to do that, then they begin the place of wonderment.
That's good.
They begin to step into who they were created to be.
Well, a lot of the things that we were diving into here stem from your book.
Yeah.
Tide Turners, the practical guide to help you feel in control, experience more joy, and sustain achievement in your life.
Yeah.
It had a #1 new release in January of this year, January 2017 on Amazon.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Yeah. It's, when I first started to write the manuscript, and I was like, what do I write the book on?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe I do have personal stories in there. So I shared that. But what I do is I take the reader on a journey. And imagine again, you're driving your car, but this time you're just lost. There's no GPS. There's no quick resource to get you back home. You're like, okay, that's what it's like in life sometimes. So you're just like, how did I get here? I thought I'd be further ahead. I have, whatever it is in your life, or, it could be your business, or it could be your marriage, whatever it is. You're at a place where you say, okay, I realize I'm lost. And I think that's the first step, is realizing you're lost. So what I do is I take the reader on this journey that says, okay, I'm lost at sea. Part 2 is I'm gonna head back to the dock, and I'm just gonna reassess. I'm gonna take personal inventory of myself. And then I'm gonna prepare for the journey is part 3. And as you go, and how do I stay on course is part 4. And so through each of those 4 parts, Michael, I take someone through individual waves, WAVES. So a wave. Now, waves come in all shapes and sizes. Waves can be so small you can't even feel it. A seismic wave could, take out a town, take out a village, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if we're not aware when those waves happen, which I call the unexpected events, that you don't plan on, it's not on your calendar, you didn't even think about that when you woke up, you didn't know it was coming, and a seismic wave comes and hits you, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
And so I lead the reader through 15 waves. At the end, they've got the plan to gain clarity, to understand they can reach what I call their island of achievement. And by having gone through 15 waves, they're more confident, they've got more joy, they have more courage, and they can continue the path in the journey that they want to march forward to.
So it almost sounds like it's a perfect book for somebody who may be at a place in their life where they're going, I don't want to be in that hamster wheel. I don't want to be, the cat that chases its tail, or the dog that chases its tail.
Yeah.
I want to get out of this cycle and start seeing, the picture I'm seeing is like, there are people who swim in the ocean, and there's people who ride the wave.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for those people who don't want to just sit there and be in that cycle.
Yeah.
The up and down. I grew up on the East Coast. I'd go to the shore. You go out to the ocean, and you get out, 100 feet, and you just kind of ride with the waves going up and down. But you get closer to that shore, and all of a sudden you can ride the wave. You can go somewhere instead of just going up and down or being in that cycle. Yep. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And when you think about, the waves, and this has happened to me in my past, where I was just going along with wherever the waves took me. Yeah. And because that's what I thought you did. I mean, no one told me any better. I didn't learn that in college. I just, you get your education, get a job, get married, and you have a good life.
Yeah.
That's what I was told. That's what they teach, right?
That's for sure.
And and they're like, you go to school, right? You get a good education, you get married, and it's just like this cycle, boom, 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 and then one day you're like, wait a minute, I'm not happy. I'm in a job that I really don't like, but it's paying the bills.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people are unfulfilled because they've reached a level of success in their job, in whatever status, whatever it is, but they're like, well, I don't want to do anything else because you know what? It's a job and it's paying my bills, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
When I hear that word okay, I'm like, there's more to that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes some self-awareness to say, okay, you know what? I need to make a change in my life. I can direct where I want to go, and I need to take charge of that. And see, once we decide to step into that boat, then we can drive the boat, right? But if they're out floating in the ocean, we're just going to go wherever the tide is going to take us. And for some people, Michael, that's okay for them. They don't really care.
Yeah.
But I know there are a group of individuals who say, you know what? No. I have some things that I want to do. I want to dream. I want to do this in my life, and I'm going to take control. And I need a group of people to help me do that. And that's really who this book is for. It's really for the people to kind of get, awaken themselves, say, you know what? Yeah, that's me. I have some ideas. I got some dream. I want to do this. And it's for those. And because I share my personal story through that. And that's absolutely what happened to me. It was an awakening, and I'm on this journey now to impact and inspire people and shift their thinking so they can change the momentum and be a tide turner.
Before we dive more into the conversation, how can people find the book?
Yeah, so they can go to tideturners with an S book.com. So tideturners with an S book.com, and you'll get to see the book trailer and read some things that people have said about the book, or you can just go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble as well.
As I've talked to a lot of people about this whole idea of dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers, there's one trait that seems to be an overarching theme. And I think you were just talking about it, really. If we go a little bit deeper, I think it's exactly what you're talking about, which is identity is critical to being a dreamer or a maker or a doer or someone that's not willing to continue on the same path of being okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned in a couple of your quotes, and again, I think these are just so powerful. As I read through them, I really wanted to share this with our audience. So there are two that stuck out to me. One of them was docked, the resting place to take inventory before you can set sail. Mm-hmm. So it's that place of like this being tethered to the dock so that you can have a foundation. The other quote that I thought was really cool is, when you become self-aware, you begin to understand who you are. Mm. Can you talk about identity and why it's so critical in reaching the fulfillment of your potential?
Yeah. Identity is big. And we broadcast a channel called You, Y-O-U, every single day. We walk around and this is our channel. Now, people may not believe that, but we do. We broadcast this channel on social media. We're broadcasting a channel of who we are. Identity is critical. We're, a critic, a cynic, or we're creating content for people to like or share or whatever. And there's a lot of critics out there.
Yeah.
Lots of critics, a lot of cynics.
Yeah.
But every one of us, every single person, the 7 billion of us walking around this planet, we're broadcasting this channel. And it's your identity called You. And we need to be aware of what we're doing, aware of what we're saying, because we're a reflection. And I did a quote where, as we look into water, we see the reflection of us. It's whatever we are projecting out, it's reflecting back into our lives.
That's good.
Right? If we want to give, and we're giving, we're gonna receive things in back. But if we're not giving, we're not gonna receive.
Yeah.
And it's so critical that we can get into this rut. And, I was in this, go to work, come home, walk the dog, turn the TV on. And that was like my schedule for several years, Michael, before I had this like, there's something called self-development. What is that? Is my
Yeah.
company going to pay me for that?
Yeah.
And I had this like realization, like, oh, this is interesting. Well, let me tell you something. Another story. I was on an online class, and the instructor was asking about a vision. And I'm like, vision, what's he talking about? And I'm like, well, I'm in corporate America, so I always see, where the company is going and, the vision that we're going to create. And I sat back in my chair and I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a vision for my life.
Wow.
Because I thought, okay, and I've had a level of success in corporate America. I thought that was just for companies. That was just for Amazons of the world.
Yeah.
Right. And they know where they're going and they know what they're doing. And that's for the big companies. But I didn't realize that, well, wait a minute, maybe I should have, a compass. Maybe I should know I should have a vision of where I want to go. And so your identity is tied to your vision. And that's why I shared that story, because I didn't have a vision, but I want to do something more, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And so I had to get out of this doldrum of, okay, this is how life should be, to like, how can it be? And I began to do some things to say, okay, I got to shape my mind. I didn't know about self-development. I need to dig deep into my brain, my mind, and take inventory.
Yeah. And you really, mindset has become a critical thing for you.
Oh, it's all about mindset for me, Michael, and my clients too as well. It's we are whatever we put in, we get out.
Okay.
And I took another online class, and this one shocked me. This one was a real shock to my system, and I'll share it with your listeners.
Yeah.
And you, Michael.
Yeah.
So he said, for the next 30 days, we're going to do a media cleanse. And I'm like, media cleanse? What's he talking about? Media cleanse? Is it something I drink?
If it was only that easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, there's no news. You're not going to watch TV anymore. You're not, if you have to do social media, okay, because that's your business. I get it. But there's if you're driving around in the car, listen to radio, turn it off. You're going to put something in your mind other than what's happening in the stream of media, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Michael, I had a show for every single day of the week.
Yeah.
This show was on Monday. This show was on Tuesday. This is on Wednesday. This is on Thursday. I had my shows.
I get it. I'm that way too.
And if someone said, you can't watch your shows, I'm like, what? And here's an interesting thing. I'm a sports guy. I knew the Super Bowl was coming up, and it was just on the end of my 30 days. So I was like, oh, okay, good. And so I removed myself from news. I removed myself from music. I removed myself from all types of input into my brain. And I decided to dig into audiobooks, and I started listening to CDs, and I started listening to podcasts, and I started putting different things into my mind. And it's definitely shaped and created where we are today for myself. Now, some people are hearing this and like, no way can I do that. I encourage you to try it.
Yeah.
Take media cleanse. Doesn't mean I'm not saying you needed to remove yourself for a lifetime. Yeah. I'm just saying try something for 30 days, see how you feel. I know one of the very first things I was doing, I was turning on the news. Yeah. First thing I want to see, what's traffic like? What's the weather like? And they're like, downtown, there was a shooting overnight. I'm like, oh, wow, downtown shooting overnight. That's terrible. Yeah. That's how I started my day. Yeah. And so guess what? So all of this now negative waves that I just heard is now into my subconscious mind. And people don't realize that what's in your subconscious mind lingers with you throughout that day. Right. Well, why is it that people are, like, well, I saw that commercial last week and I see the commercial and why do companies continue to bombard us with commercials?
Yeah.
It's because if there's enough impressions in your mind, eventually you'll buy.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're walking in the grocery store like, oh, maybe I do need that.
Yeah.
It wasn't on your list. They've converted you.
Yeah.
Right. So I remove all media, and I still do it today. I get criticized that I don't know what's happening in the country and in the world with news, and that's I maybe don't know in depth what's happening. I do get alerts on my phone, but I don't spend time absorbing media. I spend the time putting the things into my mindset, which are going to transform the way I think, the way I act, the way I feel.
Well, and it goes back to that whole conversation of the noise that we started out with, and that whole concept of like the job of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, of these networks is to fill time so that they can make revenue.
Yes.
So a lot of the poison in the political system right now has to do with the noise. It has to do with just overconsumption of stuff that in the end is dividing instead of really focusing on the things that bring together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I choose, again, it's a choice. We all have choices.
Yeah.
But to your identity is shaped by what you consume,
right,
from a mental perspective.
Yeah.
And it truly is. And I began to study who I deemed successful. And I'm like, what are the traits of these for me, Cardiff Hall, what are these traits of these guys? I started looking like, readers, they're consistently learning new information. They're challenging themselves like, oh, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
That's what I chose to do.
Yeah.
And that's definitely shaped the course of my direction in my life.
That's really cool. It's really good. Let's talk a little bit. So we've just been talking about identity. There's a lot of fear that comes with questioning identity. There's a lot of fears that, like, when you start getting to that quiet place, when you start getting to that place of questioning who you are, questioning what makes you unique, what makes you tick, what makes your voice instead of just reproducing the voices of others. There's a lot of fear that goes along with that.
Yeah.
How do doubt, fear, and faith work together?
Yeah. So there's something in psychology called the confidence competence loop. And what this basically is boils it down. So that's where fear, the very first step is like this fear, like, I don't know how, right? And like this manuscript of this book, I didn't know how to write a book.
Yeah.
But I was willing to take the steps to say, okay, I'm just going to try. I'm gonna start to write, and then I'm gonna start to kind of figure things out. And so what happens when you start, you begin to increase your confidence, right? And as you move through this loop, the more confidence you have, the more competent you become. And this cycle leads you into really, you're so moved away from fear.
Yeah.
But the very first step in this fear factor, right? and as I was creating this manuscript, I was sharing personal information that my wife knew, but my parents really didn't know. And I'm like, do I put this in the book? And what are my friends going to think? And maybe I shouldn't share that story. And I've got, I was in massive debt. I'm like, I don't really want to share that. But then I'm like, no, I need to, because I need to be authentic as an author.
Yeah.
I need to come across and be real and be who I am.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't gone through that first step, which is like, okay, just taking the first steps, increasing my confidence. If I didn't do that, this book probably would not have come out.
Wow.
I would have just kept it in my head.
Wow.
And said, well, one day I should have did a book.
Yeah.
But and we fall into this trap of shoulda, woulda, coulda. 3 words that do not exist in my vocabulary until now. And in the book. That's what fear is. Fear
Yeah.
says, well, I should have, well, I've done this in the past, didn't work out. Okay. But not taking the time to analyze why things didn't work out instead of, well, it was her fault. It was that fault. And you're pointing blame.
Right.
See, once we assign blame to anyone but ourselves, we truly will be stuck in that same place. I call that's a docked place. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
But once we say, you know what, okay, I could have done some things differently. And we begin to okay, how can I move forward? Who can help me? And through this process, right, as I began to increase my confidence, the doors opened where I was listening to an episode of E.O. Fire.
Yeah.
And I heard an author speak. And I'm like, I got to connect with this author. He said, I don't know. He sounds like he could help me.
Wow.
He could educate me. And wow. I'm glad I did.
That's so good.
Yeah.
You have overcome a lot of failures along your journey, something that you talk about quite a bit and openly, which I think is really powerful in itself. Just the fact that so many people are running from their failures that they're not willing to dwell there and kind of experience what that is and how that's shaped them. We had a guest on recently, and he said something pretty phenomenal. He said, we're fragile, and he was talking about systems, but also people. We're fragile because of the fear of failure.
Mm.
How has failure really strengthened who you are, your abilities, and what you're able to do?
Yeah. Wow. Before this journey that I'm on, I would have said, if I failed at something, I just do not want to revisit that experience again.
Right.
Because here's what happened. When we fail, there's an emotional connection to that experience. And it's kind of like, I have this daughter, and, when she's growing up, I'm like, you cannot touch when you see the flame, do not touch.
Right.
and she's like, I told you, right? And now it's ingrained in her, like, okay, stove hot, do not touch.
Right.
And the same thing happens as adults, because when we failed, we've tried something, we went on this diet, didn't work, right? You're bummed out, and you now have this negative associated emotion to what you just went through.
Right.
And that just stops us. Now, or you could choose to say, okay, how can I learn from that? Here's a perfect example of this. One of the failures, I'm writing this manuscript, working on my computer. It was around the holiday timeframe, Michael, and I was about 3/4 of the way complete on the manuscript. I had about 12 chapters written.
Yeah. And
just going through, and I'm crushing it, and the screen of Blue Death came on my computer.
Oh no.
and that's what I said too. But here's the thing. I've had that happen to me before, and everything has been fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I take it into Best Buy, the Geek Squad. These Geek Squad women are just fantastic to work with. And I took it in, and they said, okay, we can't fix it here, Mr. Hall, but we'll send it to our, I don't know, lab outside of DC or somewhere in the East Coast. and instead of saying, okay, let me stop writing, I continued to write.
Right. So
I continued to write, but I was not backing up as I should on the manuscript side. So anyway, fast forward, several months go by. I get a call back from Best Buy, and they say, Mr. Hall, your computer is ready for pickup.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great. And I call and I said, I just received the, automated voicemail. I just had a question. Were the files on the manuscript recovered from the hard drive?
Yeah.
Silence.
Oh.
Mr. Hall, we were not able to recover any of your files.
Wow.
Now I had a choice. I had a choice to say, this book is never coming out, because I can't remember what I wrote in chapter 1. And I remember I was in a parking lot of a gasoline station filling up because I was on my corporate job. I called my friend Chris, and I said, Chris, I went, here's what happened. Here's what's going down. And he said, Cardiff, that book is going to be better because you've grown.
Wow.
You need to start writing the book again.
Wow.
And that's a massive failure.
Yeah.
Massive. And I should have learned to have backed up, and that's on me.
Yeah.
Right. I can't now. Yes, I could have blamed whoever sent my computer, my software didn't work. I could have pointed the blame to anyone else.
Yeah.
And I chose not to. I chose to say, okay, what did I learn? Okay, I got to back up consistently now.
Yeah.
But so many people would said, you know what, it's not worth it. Because again, there's that emotional connection. It's like I poured, and literally I was pouring my heart and soul into this manuscript, Michael, and it was taken away from me.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm gonna start over, and I'm just gonna do this. And that's what I chose to do. And so I share with your audience because it starts with that emotional connection and being willing to say, okay, it was painful. What can I learn?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how can I move forward?
That's good. That's good. Now, family is important to you. You've I think there's two things I really want to dive deep into the family aspect with you. First off, tell us about your daughter and that journey.
Yeah. So my daughter is going to be turning 8 on July 3rd. And so my wife and I, we went through the process. We couldn't physically have a family of our own through natural birth. So we decided to look at the adoption route. And then as we started to go through the adoption route, we're like, whoa, this is intense.
Wow.
I mean, they were poking and prodding and looking at our finances and there was a lot of things that we had to expose. And I'm like, wow, this is all of this to adopt a child because we're a loving couple. We just want to start to have a family and adopt a child. And I remember meeting the birth mom. We flew down to Florida. We met her and her father and her mom, and it was just a magical experience. And she chose us as the family for an adoption.
Wow.
So I remember it's interesting, getting a room ready for a child, right? That's not even born. And so here we are, and we're getting this room ready. We have the car seat. And I remember walking through the airport. It was July 3rd. We got the phone call. The birth mom had delivered, and we had to get tickets that day. I mean, so we booked a flight and everything else. We're walking through the airport, Michael, and we have this baby seat, right? And a stroller.
Yeah.
There's no baby. And literally the faces on people. They were looking at like, did you leave your kid in the bathroom? No, where's your baby? And I remember that to this day, that people were like, they were physically at somebody, we would come up like, hey, you realize there's no baby in your car seat? Like, totally. We realized that, and we had to share, tell the story. But it was interesting how people can perceive that, obviously not good parents left the child in the, somewhere, And so I've got a real passion for adoption. She's our child, and we completed the paperwork, and judge signed off on it. But it's a magical experience. Adoption, even if it's domestically or out of the country, it is an amazing experience for families who are looking to adopt, or maybe can't have children on their own, or maybe wants to add to their existing family. I love it, and it's something I'm passionate about.
That's really cool. How's it impacted your life?
Well, you know what? There's something that I've developed that I call, it's your 7-layer why. And the question is, why is that important to you? So anytime you do something of significance to you, whatever you call it significant, I ask myself 7 layers. Well, why is that important to you? So for like this book, why is that important to me? Answer the question. And then you answer the question again. Why is that important to you? Once you get down to that 7th layer, it becomes very emotional. And what I found out when I started to ask myself these questions, the 7th layer wasn't about financial freedom. It wasn't about impact to others. It wasn't about significance. It was about my daughter.
Wow.
It was about the fact that something was taken away. And again, it was her, but what I gained, right? So something, her birth mom was taken away. She is now part of our family. It was the whole fact that for me, what I'm doing is for her. And I never connected the dots until I went through this powerful, why is that important to me? 7 layers deep. And I just began to have tears on my face, like, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
This is why. And it's everything that I've built so far and where it's going. It's all about my daughter.
That's really cool. Now, your daughter came to you a little while back and says, I want to start a summer business. Tell us about that and what's going on, because that's really, really fun.
Yeah. So she's had this idea, and it's interesting as I drive around with my daughter. And I'm sorry, some of your listeners would have kids, and you're driving around, and they just say some really kind of unique things.
Yeah, they do.
And she mentioned something about a store because she knows the bullseye, right? So Target has done a very good job of educating kids about this bullseye, right?
Yeah.
And without the letters, without the wording, she knows that's Target.
Our daughter's the same way.
Yeah. So now I'm not sure if you're Target, but they have these little kiddie carts, right?
Yeah.
So they can push their kids. And so then my daughter was telling me about a store that she was going to create that it was like Target, but it was different. And she just went like on this whole, like, wow, I'm like, that is amazing, honey. And so I was downstairs working, and she's like, Daddy, I want to start a summer business. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what on? I want to have a drink stand. I'm like, a drink stand? You mean a lemonade stand? She's no, I want to have a drink stand where I'm going to sell different types of drinks to kids and the moms. And she had this thing like mapped out. And so I'm like, you know what, honey, you're a tie turner. You're a tie turner kid, because you're going against the grain. You're going against the flow of things, just because summer is a time of like relaxation, of fun, and she's still having fun in camps during the day, but she wants to create this little business. And so I have a coach. And so we're talking about that whole story, and he's like, Cardiff, you need to start a program for kids. And I'm like, well, yeah, I was thinking about that in the fall. He's like, no, do it now. And so what I've done is I've created a 7-day free email course where I take someone through, actually the parents, right? The child and the parents have to do this together. But I take them through exercises 7 days a week that they can, at the end of the 7 days, they will have basically the game plan to launch their business.
That's cool.
And so I just kicked it off today, and it will run through 7 days. And the 7th day, they'll start a business. And they also have a private Facebook group, a community of families who jump into this program that will be able to share stories and pictures and connect. And it's going to be a fun program.
I think there's a couple of really, really cool things about that. One, throughout life, I think we all learn that dreams die. But what I love about this is that from an early age, it teaches kids that dreams can live. And I think that's really cool. The other thing I think that's really cool about this is that it has to be an endeavor in which the parent is involved. And I think that's something that, let's get away from sitting behind the TV with the kids or give them the iPhone or the tablet, and let's get out there and do some things. So I think that's super cool.
So you're absolutely right. So I had to bring the parents involved, because for me, I'm just pouring my, before work, after work, I'm pouring myself into, this business. And I was like, you know what, it's time away from that family. And my daughter wanted to have this program. So now, there's short bursts of activities that the parent or guardian can do with their child or grandchild. And it takes them at the end, they'll have a game plan. They'll actually know. So it starts with, kind of the why. The kid, the child wants to start a business. What goals are they going to set? So I really kind of start very from a 50,000 foot level, and then we get granular. The most intense day is day 3, and it was frustrating for my daughter. Oh. It was the math, right? It was the business side of things. It was the financials, and I've scaled it back. I've made it less intensive for day 3 because he was frustrated. Then I had a couple of families go through it as well, and that was day 3 is kind of very there's a lot. It's robust. And so I've tweaked it. But at the end of that, it's launch day, and kids can make some money, and obviously the parents can kind of lighten what they spend on the kids as well for the summer.
That's really cool. How can people connect with it?
Yeah, so head over to Facebook, look me up. It's just Cardiff D Hall, or you can find information at Cardiff Hall. So I've got my personal fan page, which is Cardiff D Hall, or just head over to Cardiff Hall. And throughout the week, there'll be post and engagement on Tide Turner Kids.
So cool. You also have a really cool offer for our listeners. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the things I did is I realized that some people may not have the constraints to purchase a book or whatever, and I'm like, I want to take that out of the equation. So what I have is I've made available for your audience, Michael. I'm going to give them a free downloadable copy. It's a PDF copy of the book.
Wow.
And that's free.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So to get that, just head over to cardiffdhall.com/jumble. cardiffdhall.com/jumble. And you can get your free copy of Tide Turners.
So good. And we'll put that link in the episode notes and make sure that everyone knows about it. I'm super excited about that. I think that it's a perfect book for our listeners. So thanks for doing that for them.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael.
Let's jump into our final rapid fire questions. These are some of them are on topic. Some of them are just sharing little pieces of advice, but all of them are fun questions. So,
okay, great.
What are some tips that you would give someone with a big idea or a dream and they just don't know where to start?
I would say the very first tip would be to change the filter of what's you're inputting into your mind.
That's good. That's good.
That to me, that's where it starts. And there's many resources I can get, but change the input into the mind.
Input output kind of thing. You got to change the input so you get a different output.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good. What's one change that you would love to see in the world?
I've heard this question before, but man, I was thinking about it yesterday because I was listening to one of your podcasts yesterday episodes. There is a need for kids who go hungry, and I didn't realize this. So in my local community, my daughter and our family, we packed, backpacked lunches for kids for the weekend. Wow. And my daughter couldn't understand why kids truly don't have food over the weekend. We're packing it and she's like, well, why are we doing this? And I'm explaining to her, but she couldn't see it. Yeah. And it's real. Yeah. Not only here in America, all across the world. Kids don't have food for a weekend, or maybe they have food for dinner. And I think that's the number one thing I would, if I could have my magic wand, I would say for me, no kid should go hungry. Wow. No kid should go hungry. That's good.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Great question. I want my legacy to be one of impact, one of change. I think of the greats, Zig Ziglar. Yeah. Man, he had an imprint on my life. John Maxwell, imprint on my life. Now, I don't know these people personally, but one day, my legacy, someone would say Cardiff D Hall had an impact on my life. Wow. He inspired me. He changed my direction. He brought me to a new level of thinking that I didn't think was possible. Wow. That's significance to me.
That's good. Who or what inspires you?
Oh, man, there's a lot of great stuff out there. When I began my self-development journey, the very first person that I found, obviously, was John Maxwell. Yeah. Darren Hardy. Yep. And the number one person for me is Brendan Burchard. He continues to inspire me. I've went to his conferences. He's got a new book coming out in September, which I've already pre-ordered. Everything that he delivers for me, and it's mindset, belief, achievement, habits, success. To me, he's the guy for me, the individual rather, to shift my thinking when I'm having a bad day. I put him on, like, he's got these quick videos, boom, and it immediately shifts the way I'm thinking. Or I go to music to kind of shift my thinking, and it's Christian music for myself.
Now, you've done a lot of media cleanse.
Yes.
So what are you reading and watching?
Okay. So, watching, I don't watch a lot of TV, obviously. I do watch sports. So I'll share with you, I did watch maybe 2 hours of the US Open yesterday.
Nice.
So I did that. But I really take, I'm reading a book right now entitled God's Power to Change Your Life by Rick Warren.
Good book.
I'm reading that book right now, and I just came off of Living Forward with Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. Reading that as well. So I'm a constant learner, constant reader. Love reading, and I probably do more reading than watching TV. If I'm watching TV, it's a sports event. Honestly. Or you know what, my wife loves Cooking Channel, and we'll watch a cooking channel, something or other, because I do like that on the weekend is to kind of see what's happening in the culinary world with her. But I just love reading, love input into the mind.
That's really good. Those cooking shows are dangerous. Always makes me hungry. I'm like sitting there. I'm like, no, they need a delivery system for those shows.
I know.
This one's a little off topic. I don't always ask this, but you mentioned faith is important to you.
Yeah.
How has your faith impacted your life?
Man, it's been huge. The book actually is based on a scripture. And it talks about faith is the confidence that we hope for will happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see.
Yeah.
And that is from Hebrews 11:1.
Yeah.
And faith is big for me. When I was writing the book, I knew I wanted to get this message of kind of hope, this faith aspect of it, and I didn't want to come across harsh, because there's a lot of books that just beat if you're not a believer, this and that, and I don't go into that aspect. I really I just bring some quotes in from the Bible. But for me personally, it's the way I start my morning. It's a way that fuels me for the day. It's a way that I just get through some difficult challenges in my life. And I talk about those challenges in the book. But it plays a big part. And for me, faith is big. You need to have faith before you kind of leave the dock and kind of step into whatever you want to do. You need to have faith in that aspect, in yourself, in your belief to figure things out. And that's on my whiteboard, is I believe in my ability to figure things out. And you have to have that belief.
Yeah.
If you don't have that belief and faith, you're going to stay docked. And you're going to say, well, I should have, I could have.
Yeah.
And at the end of my journey, because we're on this journey, we just don't know when. There's a great quote by Joan Baez, Baez, B-A-E-Z. It says, you don't get to choose how you will live or how you will die or when. You only decide how you're going to live today.
Wow. That's
or
good.
live now. Yeah. So we don't know when that end is. We don't know. But at the end, I don't want any regrets. I don't want to say, well, I should have written this book. I should have, I was called to inspire and motivate people and lead people and change directions. I don't want that for myself. And I don't want that for your audience.
Right.
I don't. Your podcast is for people to take change, to shift their mindset, to move forward in their journey, whatever, and aspire to new heights. And I love that. And that's what I choose to do. I choose to aspire to new heights, to impact and to grow like a legacy.
So good. So good. Now there's going to be some people listening and they may want to connect with you. What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say head over to cardiffdhall.com /jumble. One, connect with me, get your free book.
Yeah.
But you can also just go to my website, just cardiffdhall.com. If you have kids, head over to what is it? Oh, head over to my Facebook page on Facebook or Twitter. There'll be information with the Ty Turner Kids Entrepreneur Summer Sizzler program, and you can check it out there. Take a look at the video. It gives a little bit of insight behind what this summer program is. And my goal, Michael, is crazy. My goal is to have 500 kids participate in this program. Now, my goal before was about 100 kids, and I think I know I could get 100. I honestly by myself cannot have 500 kids in this program.
Wow.
That requires faith.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of people sharing, talking, tweeting, sharing this video, really getting this message out, and having kids just dream and build that connectivity with the parents or the guardians, and begin to learn about themselves and who they are, and give them confidence. And so the goal of 500 is large and massive, but I know it's available. I know, we as a community can do that. So I encourage some people to check out that information on Facebook at Cardiff Hall or Cardiff D Hall.
That's great. What's one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
So I talked a lot about my daughter. I talked a lot about adoption. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a foundation. I already have the name picked out, and it's going to be an adoption foundation to help families afford the cost of adoption. It is something that my wife and I are very blessed to have the funding to do that. A lot of families don't have the funding. I know what it costs, and it's on my heart. It's on my mind to create this foundation for them so I can help families defray the cost of adoption. It's unfortunate there is a cost, but there is a cost to it.
Yeah.
And especially if you go international, there's a higher cost for that. So that's my dream, that one day there will be an adoption foundation founded by Cardiff D Hall, my wife, and my daughter.
That's really, really cool. Cardiff, it has been so much fun diving into this conversation with you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for the opportunity.
Once again, I want to thank my guest today, Cardiff D Hall. Really great guy, and his book's killer awesome. So you want to make sure to go check that out. And again, you can go over to cardiffdhall.com/jumble. On Monday, we have another incredible guest lined up for you. His name is Tim Rode. He is the founder of One Life Fully Lived, and he is doing really cool stuff. So make sure to check back this Monday for that episode with Tim Rode. Jumblethink is all about giving you amazing resources like this podcast. We've started something really cool called One Tip Fridays, where every Friday we release a short video, gives you one tip that you can apply to your big idea and dream to start chasing it right now, not waiting another day, but getting you closer to creating that big idea and dream and making it a reality. Chasing your dream doesn't have to be hard, and we want to make sure that you have the resources to make it easy and fun. You can check those out on Facebook and Instagram. Simple to do, facebook.com/jumblethink, or on Instagram @jumblethink. Thanks again for tuning into this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it and that it's impacted your life, giving you some great resources and encouraging you on your journey to chase your big idea and dream and create the world you want to live in.
Légèrement espacé. Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.